All right, Rudy Gobert to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Let's go ahead and discuss it. Before we do, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video, all that fun stuff here, and let's get on into it. All right, you heard it here, not first, but you heard it. Rudy Gobert is going to the Minnesota Timberwolves. He's been traded from the Utah Jazz. He's going to be teaming up with Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and D'Angelo Russell. What does this mean? How did it get done? Let's break it down. Okay, so Minnesota traded away the following players. Here's our first tweet from Woj. Happened, roughly about 1:30 Mountain Time or 3:30 Eastern Time. Here it is. The Jazz are receiving Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Walker Kessler, Jared Vanderbilt, multiple first-round picks, which we'll get into in a minute, and then they are also sending Leandro Balmaro to this team. Okay, let's pull it up. What are these picks? Jazz are getting the 2022 first round pick in Walker Kessler. I guess I clicked on the wrong link, but the Utah Jazz are getting multiple picks here. Here they are. They're getting multiple picks. It looks like this tweet might have been deleted. Regardless, the Jazz are getting multiple picks from Minnesota to be able to land Rudy Gobert. And let's pull this up here. Now we can go to the ESPN page. In fact, let's just do that real quick just to figure out what the picks are, because it was reported initially. Here it is. Utah will acquire the unprotected picks of 2023, 25, 27, and a top 5 protected pick in 2029. This is pretty big for Utah, so they're getting so many picks back in return. 23, 25, 27, top 5 protected. Pretty amazing that Utah was able to get this big of a haul as far as their draft picks go. Player-wise, they're not getting much. They're getting an expiring contract in Patrick Beverley. They're getting Malik Beasley, who has a team option. They're getting Jared Vanderbilt, who I believe also has a team option. I think he's a good foundational player that they could probably have be a role player for their future team. Pretty young, good defender. Doesn't do a whole lot on offense on his own, but really like him for this particular team. So here we go. Let's pull this up. This is the Jazz, just a spreadsheet of what the Jazz is, along with Minnesota's cap sheet should now look like. As you can see, Rudy Gobert is now gone from the Jazz, and he's down here with D'Angelo Russell Towns and Karl-Anthony Towns. The interesting thing that I got to say here about this team, that Golden State, that Minnesota is now assembled, it's crazy. I've kind of always been of the mindset that when you have a young star guard or a young star, of the future that you just recently drafted and they're still on their rookie deal, you have so much ability and flexibility to be able to move forward and bring in max player guys while your rookie, who's we know is a star, Ja Morant, Luka Doncic a few years ago, Trae Young, all these other players. Anthony Edwards is only making $10 million next year, and then after that he'll get paid. But it allows this team to say, okay, we're paying Towns, we're paying D'Lo, and we're paying Rudy Gobert. So pretty big stuff there. I'm intrigued by this whole concept of Karl-Anthony Towns playing alongside Rudy Gobert. It doesn't make sense to me why Towns would want to just totally give up on the center position. So essentially Towns will be the 4, Rudy will be the 5. This team is now very, very tall. And they have the 2 twin towers in the Twin Cities. To me, what does this mean for Minnesota? Let's just break it down in that regard. What does this mean for Minnesota? They're going to be a way better defensive team next year. I'll tell you that much. Rudy, his ability to protect the rim, his ability to be a lob threat, his ability to be a good screen setter, he's going to be all over the place for this team. And he'll be able to work pretty well with Towns, and this team will be able to have this 7-foot great scorer in Towns be able to play on the perimeter. So now you're not your traditional big guys. Like, who are they going to guard? Like, who's guarding Towns? It's going to allow Towns to go one-on-one. There's a couple of clips that I saved from this Timberwolves Grizzlies series in the playoffs where Towns, they were putting him in position to go and play ISO in a sense, but they would really attack mismatches. Towns has the ability to bust out after a rebound, go and bring the ball up court and be able to attack the rim. So I really think that this whole idea of Towns and Gobert is super interesting. 2 7-footers. Towns is still a question mark on defense, but can Rudy's presence there in Minnesota be a big thing? We saw there were moments in Minnesota this year where they looked really good, but they also didn't look so great. So ultimately, it is interesting to see what they're doing there. So this new ownership group for Minnesota, this new general manager who was brought on from Denver, they are now swinging for the fences here, and they mortgage their future. 20, 23, 25, 27, 29 draft picks gone. 4 picks for the Jazz, and then they also traded away one of their picks this year in Walker Kessler. So essentially 5 picks with 1 player already being known. So extremely crazy, extremely wild that this would happen. Any other thoughts on Minnesota? I think this D'Angelo Russell, Rudy Gobert pairing is going to work very, very good. D'Lo loves to be the ball handler and pick and rolls, so it almost allows you to say we're going to have like 2 different 2-man games that we can play that should be hyper efficient in both Towns and Edwards, and then also with Rudy Gobert and D'Angelo Russell. So that will be super entertaining. I think they'll have enough offense, and they really had enough offense last year, but ultimately letting leads go in the playoffs was a big issue for them. Sometimes their defense, while it looked good during the regular season, sometimes it wasn't that great. So this team that was 8th in offensive rating last year, I don't know if that changes too much. You hope maybe that there's more efficiency with a guy like Gobert on the floor for everybody else involved. And then 13th defensive rating now probably jumps up at the very least the top 6 or 7 in the league. And so this will be really, really cool for Minnesota. And it'll be really interesting to see them play because this is kind of the first big transaction of this offseason. Obviously, we still have the Kevin Durant situation going on with Brooklyn, but ultimately this is pretty cool and a big move and really changes. Like, it's crazy to me how they weren't going to give up D'Angelo Russell or Jaden McDaniels. So they keep those guys. Very, very good. So it's just wild to me. Utah also doesn't have Pascal, Whiteside, House, or Forrest on the roster next year, and neither are these players going back to Minnesota. So yeah, like Minnesota has this talented of a team. Their payroll is only $3 million ahead of what Utah's is. Pretty wild. What this means for Utah, this has to mean a full rebuild at this point. Utah now is kind of in a place where they really just are going to be in this area where you lose a highly impactful defensive player who was carrying your defense and helping it be as good as it was for all these years. Now he's gone. Your defense is going to plummet. Absolutely plummet. But you still have Donovan Mitchell. You have some expiring deals here with, Rudy Gay, Patrick Beverley, Jordan Clarkson, Malik Beasley, Bojan Bogdanovic. So I really think that this team has the ability to maybe make more trades. How much does this change kind of their look as a playoff team? I think it changes it a lot. As currently constructed, this team is not a playoff team. Maybe they're a play-in team, but they're for sure not ending the season in the West with a top 8 record in that conference. So I ultimately think that this is a pretty interesting deal. There's got to be more moves that Utah's making here. There's 2 trains or 2 ways they can go. They can decide, okay, well, we're going to just clean house. we're going to try to get all the first round picks that we can for these players, and we're just going to clean house. Or, as Woj tweeted earlier, he tweeted this, that the Jazz have gathered 6 first-round picks in the past 24 hours, including 7-footer Walker Kessler, the 22nd overall pick in the 2022 draft. The Jazz plan to retool the roster around all-star guard Donovan Mitchell. So this is a purge that is very similar to what Portland is doing with Damian Lillard. Trade away, maybe you get some picks, get some young players, but you're really trying to rebuild with one guy. Now, this gives the team the option to kind of figure out who is going to work best with Donovan. It is interesting to me that they did not bring back, they're probably not going to bring back one of his childhood friends in Eric Pascal, who the Jazz brought on last year. They're probably not going to, they're obviously not going to have Royce O'Neal, who was probably Donovan's best friend on the team. So now Donovan, and then they just took away his best player outside of himself. Like if they were, and then obviously earlier in the year, they traded away Joe Ingles to the Portland Trailblazers, who was a good friend and a little bit of a mentor for Donovan. So in a span of a few years, like, a bunch of people have left. Okay. I think Niang was close with this team, who later signed with the Philadelphia 76ers last summer. I think this team is almost saying, like, I'm just interested to see exactly what this looks like, because they can pick and choose what players they want. Now, these picks being unprotected in 2023, 25, 27, and then a top 5 protection in 29, that is huge. Okay, so the Jazz are going to have multiple picks, including their own, that they can, again, keep and rebuild with, or they can use those. And if you're a team that wants, some offense, some shooting, some efficiency as far as scoring, Bojan Bogdanovic makes a lot of sense for you. And maybe you're not so crazy about it, but when the Jazz now come to you and say, we'll give you Bogey and 2 draft picks, maybe just a first rounder, does a team turn that down? Those are 2 solid picks. They're unprotected. And you'd have to imagine that they're going to get rid of these picks if they're trying to retool, and that's the key word, retool, around Donovan Mitchell. Or they could easily just come and say, no, we're dealing Donovan too. And that's the final moment with Donovan Mitchell being part of this team. So that is that. But that's it. The Utah Jazz trading Rudy Gobert to the Minnesota Timberwolves for a lot of players and a whole lot of picks. That's all I got to say on this one. Stripe Seal says hello or heyo. I'm going to say what's good. Really quickly, actually, here, now that I just remembered it. We have, let's pull this up here. Stripe Seal says, whose team are you on, and who do you think won this trade? Thanks for the question. My personal favorite team in the NBA is actually the Jazz. Enjoy them a lot. And who do I think won this trade? Well, I think it's going to take time to tell, what happens here. I think, immediately the Timberwolves are way better and the Jazz are way worse. Now, the Jazz probably can make more moves, but I do think that right now you got to say it's Minnesota who won the deal, because if these picks don't pan out, and maybe Minnesota's pretty all right, and they get to the 10 to the 14th pick in most drafts, maybe it's not that big of a deal for Utah or for Minnesota to give up those picks, and the Utah trade looks really bad on their end. However, they can also move these picks around, so Stripe definitely giving it to the Timberwolves here, just because they're getting the best player. So I'll say short term Minnesota, long term maybe Utah. One thing to remember about Rudy too is that he recently turned 30 years old. So a pick in or a top 5 protected pick in 2029, that is crazy because Rudy won't even be in the league. He won't even. Will he be in the league still in the 2026-27 season? He'll be 36 by that point. So, and at the end of the season, he'll be 37. Like it's crazy. And for them to get an unprotected pick there, like this is about looking at the cap sheet for Minnesota. This is about this time frame, right? Maybe 4 years. You got 4 years. Here. We understand, and we're probably going to get Towns or Anthony Edwards for 5 years here, right? And I assume that also means that they'll bring Towns in. He is he's going to be a free agent in the 2025 offseason, so that means that they should be able to start beginning a little bit of extension talks with Towns. But Towns, Edwards, and Gobert, interesting, very interesting. So yeah, short term, give me Minnesota winning this trade. Long term, it kind of depends. But if Utah turns around these picks and makes them into players that start and work well with Donovan Mitchell, then maybe they won the trade. It's hard to say right now, especially when there's so many picks and young players and players that are also probably not on this Jazz team for that long, like, as previously mentioned, Malik Beasley and Patrick Beverley. So those players could be moved. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the stream. Feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that fun stuff. We're trying to do reactions to these big time moves. We're assuming that a Kevin Durant trade is going to come within the next 7 to 10 days, I assume. I think that's pretty safe to say. And yeah, we'll see. Still some free agents out there that are interesting, but we'll also give like a full rundown as to all 30 teams in the NBA and what they did during the offseason once we're kind of like the end of July. So anyway, thank you for watching the video, catching the live stream. We'll see you in the next one.